The champagne glass trembled in Elena Rodriguez's hand as three women in designer gowns whispered behind jeweled fans, their eyes cutting across the charity gala like knives. Her department store dress, carefully chosen for its simple elegance, suddenly felt like armor that wasn't quite strong enough. She had no idea that within the hour her husband would stand up at the podium and make an announcement that would silence every whisper in that glittering ballroom forever. Elena never imagined her life would lead to moments like these. Growing up in the dusty streets of Phoenix, Arizona, where her mother Sofia cleaned houses for wealthy families across the city, luxury felt like something that happened to other people. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Their small apartment above Mr. Chen's corner market smelled perpetually of rice and cleaning supplies, and Elena learned early that dreams were expensive commodities they couldn't afford. Sofia Rodriguez worked 16-hour days, her calloused hands scrubbing marble countertops in mansions while Elena did homework at kitchen tables that cost more than their monthly rent. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Sofia would return home exhausted, her uniform wrinkled and her spirit somehow still intact, always carrying stories about the families she served. Some treated her with kindness, offering leftover meals or hand-me-down clothes for Elena. Others barely acknowledged her presence, speaking around her as if she were invisible furniture. Through those stories, Elena glimpsed a world of private schools and summer homes, of children who complained about having only 2 vacation destinations to choose from. She absorbed every detail, not with envy, but with curiosity. How did people navigate that world? What did they talk about over dinner? How did they carry themselves through rooms filled with crystal and expectations? High school brought its own challenges. While her classmates worried about prom dresses and college applications, Elena worked afternoons at the local library, shelving books and helping elderly patrons with computer questions. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, became an unexpected mentor, introducing Elena to biographies of successful women who had built something from nothing. Late evenings found Elena reading about entrepreneurs and innovators by the light of her phone when their electricity got cut off. Sofia never complained about their circumstances, but Elena noticed everything. The way her mother stretched every dollar, buying generic brands and mending clothes until they fell apart. The way Sofia's face lit up when she found a $5 bill forgotten in a jacket pocket. The pride in her voice when she told neighbors that Elena was going to be the first in their family to attend college, even though they had no idea how to pay for it. The scholarship letter arrived on a Tuesday that changed everything. Full ride to Arizona State University, based on academic merit and financial need. Elena found Sofia crying over the acceptance letter in their tiny kitchen, her work-worn hands shaking as she read the words that meant her daughter's future would be different from her past. College introduced Elena to new hierarchies and social codes she had to learn through observation and occasional painful mistakes. Her roommate Ashley came from a family that owned 3 restaurants in Scottsdale, and their dorm room became a study in contrasts. Ashley's side overflowed with designer bedding, expensive electronics, and photos from European vacations. Elena's side held carefully organized textbooks, a few treasured family photos, and clothes purchased from discount stores. Ashley wasn't cruel, just oblivious. She would casually mention weekend trips to San Diego or shopping sprees that cost more than Elena's monthly budget for everything. When Ashley complained about her parents being stingy for only giving her a $500 monthly allowance, Elena would think about her mother's hands and say nothing. Business classes fascinated Elena in ways she hadn't expected. While other students focused on theoretical models and case studies, she found herself thinking about practical applications. How could these principles help families like hers? What businesses could serve communities that bigger companies ignored? Her professors noticed her unique perspective, the way she approached problems from angles that reflected real-world experience rather than textbook theory. During her junior year, Elena started tutoring struggling students to earn extra money. What began as simple homework help evolved into something more sophisticated as she realized many students weren't lacking intelligence, they were lacking effective study strategies and confidence. She developed personalized approaches that helped them succeed, and word spread quickly across campus. The tutoring sessions took place in the library where she had once worked in high school, and Elena found herself thinking about Mrs. Patterson's lessons about building something meaningful. These students weren't just paying for help with accounting or marketing concepts, they were investing in their own futures. Elena was facilitating that transformation, and the work felt more rewarding than any grade she had ever earned. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. By senior year, Elena was running what had become an unofficial tutoring service with a waiting list of clients. Her methods worked because she understood struggle in ways that traditional academic support couldn't replicate. She knew what it felt like to worry about money while trying to concentrate on studies, to feel out of place in classrooms full of students who took success for granted. Graduation day arrived with Sofia sitting in the front row wearing the nicest dress she owned and beaming with pride that could be felt across the entire auditorium. Elena walked across that stage carrying not just her own dreams but her mother's sacrifices and hopes. The business degree in her hand represented years of late nights, early mornings, and the unwavering belief that education could change everything. The job search proved more challenging than Elena had anticipated. Her grades were excellent and her professors provided glowing recommendations, but interviews often felt like performances where she was reading from a script she didn't quite understand. The subtle references to country clubs and networking events, the assumptions about family connections and social circles, the way interviewers' eyes would flicker with barely concealed doubt when they saw her address or heard about her background. After dozens of rejections disguised as polite deferrals, Elena decided to transform her college tutoring experience into something bigger. If traditional employment wasn't going to recognize her value, she would create her own opportunities. She spent her savings on business registration and basic website development, launching Rodriguez Academic Consulting from the same apartment where she had grown up. The business started small, serving local high school students who needed help preparing for college entrance exams and applications. Elena's approach combined academic support with practical guidance about navigating systems that many first-generation students found bewildering. She helped them understand not just the material but the unspoken rules and expectations that could make the difference between acceptance and rejection. Sofia watched her daughter's business grow with a mixture of pride and amazement. Elena had transformed their small living room into a professional workspace, and every evening brought new students seeking the kind of personalized attention that expensive prep schools provided their clients. Within 6 months, Elena was earning more than many of her college classmates who had landed corporate positions. The breakthrough came when Maria Santos, whose daughter Elena had helped gain admission to UCLA, recommended the service to her employer. Maria worked as a housekeeper for the Hendricks family, whose youngest son was struggling academically despite attending an elite private school. Elena's first session with 16-year-old Brad Hendricks took place in a mansion that dwarfed anything she had imagined, but her focus remained on helping him develop study skills that would serve him throughout his education. Within 3 months, Brad's grades had improved dramatically and his confidence had transformed along with his academic performance. Mrs. Hendricks was so impressed that she began recommending Elena to other families in their social circle. Suddenly, Elena found herself working with students from some of Phoenix's wealthiest families, teaching them the same strategies she had developed while struggling to succeed despite financial obstacles. The irony wasn't lost on Elena that her greatest qualification for helping privileged students was her intimate understanding of adversity. She could teach them resilience because she had lived it, organizational skills because she had been forced to develop them, and creative problem-solving because she had never had the luxury of conventional solutions. As her client base expanded, Elena hired additional tutors, carefully selecting individuals who shared her commitment to personalized attention and genuine care for student success. The business grew beyond individual tutoring to include workshop series, college preparation intensives, and specialized programs for students with learning differences. 2 years after graduation, Elena was running a thriving business that employed 12 people and served over 200 students annually. The girl who had once felt invisible in rooms full of expensive furniture now commanded respect from families who paid premium rates for her expertise. Her success was built on the foundation Sofia had laid through years of sacrifice and the values she had instilled about hard work and integrity. The evening that would change everything began ordinarily enough. Elena was reviewing quarterly financial reports when her phone rang with an unknown number. The voice on the other end belonged to Patricia Moore, president of the Phoenix Children's Hospital Foundation, calling with an unexpected invitation. The hospital was planning their annual charity gala, a black tie event that raised millions for pediatric care, and Patricia had heard about Elena's work from several board members whose children had benefited from her services. They wanted to honor her as their Young Professional of the Year, recognizing her contributions to education and her commitment to serving students from all backgrounds. Elena's first instinct was to decline. Charity galas belonged to a world where she still felt like an outsider, where her success might not be enough to overcome the whispers and sidelong glances she remembered from college social events. But Patricia was persuasive, emphasizing how Elena's story could inspire young professionals and demonstrate the foundation's commitment to recognizing achievement regardless of background. The decision to attend required Elena to navigate unfamiliar territory once again. The invitation specified black tie attire, and Elena found herself standing in department stores trying to find something appropriate that wouldn't require her entire month's profit. The saleswoman was kind but clearly assumed Elena was shopping for a work event rather than attending as an honored guest, showing her dresses from the clearance section without being asked. Elena chose a simple black dress that was elegant in its understated design, paired with her grandmother's pearl necklace and the small diamond earrings Sofia had given her for graduation. Looking in the mirror, she saw someone who belonged in that ballroom not because of what she wore but because of what she had accomplished. The night of the gala, Elena arrived at the resort ballroom feeling confident in her achievements even as she noticed the subtle differences between her appearance and that of the other guests. Her dress was beautiful but clearly not from a designer boutique, her jewelry was meaningful but not ostentatious, and her presence carried the quiet dignity of someone who had earned her place through merit rather than inheritance. That's when she first noticed the three women whose whispered comments would soon become irrelevant, their opinions about her simple elegance about to be overshadowed by a revelation that would transform how everyone in that room understood success, love, and the true meaning of worth. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the ballroom floor as Elena approached the registration table, her invitation trembling slightly in her hand. The volunteer behind the table, a woman wearing what Elena estimated to be a $3,000 beaded gown, scanned the guest list with manicured fingers that sparkled with diamond rings. Elena Rodriguez. Elena said clearly, watching the woman's eyebrows furrow as she searched the list twice before finding the name. "Oh, you're the young professional honoree," the volunteer said with surprise that wasn't entirely concealed. Her eyes performed a quick assessment of Elena's department store dress and modest jewelry before handing over a name badge that felt heavier than expected. "The VIP reception is through those doors, though I should mention the main program begins in 30 minutes. Elena thanked her and moved toward the cocktail reception, immediately sensing the difference in atmosphere. This wasn't just a charity event, it was a gathering of Phoenix's social elite, where conversations about vacation homes in Aspen mixed with discussions of art collections and private jet schedules. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and positioned herself near a tall window overlooking the resort's gardens. The first hour passed pleasantly enough. Several board members approached to congratulate her on the award, sharing stories about how her tutoring had transformed their children's academic performance and confidence. Sarah Chen, whose daughter had struggled with math anxiety before working with Elena, introduced her to other parents who expressed genuine gratitude for her work. But Elena couldn't ignore the undercurrents of conversation happening around her. Three women had positioned themselves near the silent auction display, their voices carrying just far enough for Elena to catch fragments of their commentary. The woman in emerald green, whom Elena recognized as Vivian Blackwood from the society pages, seemed to be leading the critique. "I suppose they had to choose someone," Vivian was saying to her companions, a blonde in navy blue and a redhead whose diamond necklace caught the light with every gesture. "Though one would think a charity of this caliber might select someone more representative of our community standards." Elena pretended to study the auction items while listening to their continued observations about her appearance, her background, and their speculation about whether honoring someone from her circumstances sent the right message to potential donors. The blonde mentioned that she had heard Elena's mother cleaned houses, her tone suggesting this was somehow relevant to Elena's qualifications for recognition. As the evening progressed, the whispered commentary intensified. Elena overheard references to her discount store ensemble and questions about whether she truly understood the sophistication required for leadership in philanthropic circles. The redhead wondered aloud if Elena would be comfortable mingling with major donors, given her obvious unfamiliarity with their social expectations. Patricia Moore approached Elena during the main reception, her warm smile a welcome contrast to the cool assessment Elena had been receiving from other corners of the room. Patricia was everything Elena had imagined a foundation president would be, gracious and articulate, with an ability to make everyone feel valued regardless of their contribution level. "How are you enjoying the evening?" Patricia asked, though her perceptive eyes suggested she had noticed the social dynamics playing out around them. "It's been educational," Elena replied diplomatically, not wanting to create awkwardness for someone who had been nothing but supportive. Patricia nodded knowingly. "These events can take some adjustment. The most important thing to remember is that you've earned your place here through your achievements, not your wardrobe budget." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of silver tapping against crystal as the evening's program began. Patricia guided Elena toward the front of the ballroom, where a small stage had been set up for presentations and remarks. Elena found herself seated at the head table, directly facing the audience of nearly 400 guests. The foundation's chairman delivered opening remarks about the hospital's mission and the critical importance of pediatric care in their community. Several major donors were recognized for their contributions, each acknowledgement accompanied by polite applause and nods of approval from the audience. When Patricia returned to the podium to introduce Elena, the room's attention focused with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Elena felt the weight of hundreds of eyes assessing her as Patricia recounted her background, her business success, and her commitment to educational equity. "Our Young Professional of the Year has demonstrated that excellence knows no boundaries," Patricia concluded. "Elena Rodriguez has built her success through dedication, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to helping others achieve their potential. Please join me in recognizing her outstanding contributions to our community." The applause was polite but noticeably lukewarm from certain sections of the audience. Elena rose to accept the Crystal Award, her heart racing as she approached the microphone. She had prepared remarks focusing on education and opportunity, but standing before this crowd, she felt the inadequacy of trying to bridge worlds that seemed determined to remain separate. Her speech was brief and heartfelt, emphasizing the importance of believing in every student's potential regardless of their background. She thanked the foundation for the recognition and expressed her hope that other young professionals would be inspired to contribute to their community in whatever way they could. As Elena concluded her remarks and prepared to leave the stage, Patricia returned to the microphone with an unexpected announcement. "Before we continue with our program, I'm delighted to share some additional news that makes this evening even more special," Patricia said, her voice carrying a note of excitement that captured the room's attention. Elena paused, uncertain whether she should remain on stage or return to her seat. "Many of you may not be aware that tonight's honoree has an additional connection to our foundation that we've only recently discovered," Patricia continued, her smile growing wider. "Elena's husband has been one of our most significant anonymous donors for the past 3 years, contributing over $2 million to our pediatric research programs." A murmur rippled through the audience as guests turned to look at Elena with new interest. Elena felt her cheeks flush, unsure where this announcement was leading. "David Chen, would you please join your wife on stage?" The ballroom fell into stunned silence as a man Elena recognized but had hoped to avoid recognition rose from a table near the back of the room. David Chen was Phoenix's most successful tech entrepreneur, having sold his software company to Microsoft for over $1 billion 3 years earlier. His subsequent investments and philanthropic activities had made him one of the city's most influential figures, though he carefully maintained his privacy and rarely appeared at social events. Elena watched David's familiar figure approach the stage, his presence transforming the room's energy entirely. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as guests processed the revelation that the woman they had been dismissing all evening was married to one of Arizona's wealthiest individuals. David reached the stage and took Elena's hand, his calm confidence a stark contrast to the shock rippling through the audience. He adjusted the microphone and surveyed the crowd with the composed authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention in boardrooms and investment meetings. "Good evening," David said, his voice carrying easily throughout the ballroom. "I want to thank Patricia and the foundation for honoring my wife tonight, though I suspect many of you are surprised to learn that Elena and I are married." He paused, allowing the full impact of his words to settle over the audience. "Elena and I have been together for 4 years, married for 2, and I've chosen to keep our relationship private because I wanted her achievements to be recognized for what they are, not overshadowed by association with my business success." Elena felt David's thumb brush across her knuckles, a gesture of support and solidarity that helped steady her racing pulse. "What you've witnessed tonight," David continued, his tone becoming more pointed, "is exactly why that privacy was necessary. My wife has built a thriving business that has transformed hundreds of students' lives. She's earned recognition through merit, dedication, and a level of integrity that this community should celebrate rather than question." The silence in the ballroom had become absolute, with guests frozen in their seats as David's words hung in the air. "I've had the privilege of watching Elena work, seeing how she connects with students others have written off, witnessing her build something meaningful from nothing but determination and compassion. Her success isn't measured by her dress tonight, or her jewelry, or her family's social connections. It's measured by the young people who are attending college because she believed in them when no one else would." David's gaze swept across the audience, making brief eye contact with individuals who had been among Elena's critics earlier in the evening. Elena chose her outfit tonight because she believes in authenticity over appearance, substance over status. She could have worn any designer gown, could have arrived in any luxury vehicle, could have made sure everyone knew exactly who she was before making judgments. Instead, she allowed you to reveal exactly who you are. The redhead who had been particularly vocal about Elena's appearance was now studying her napkin with intense concentration, while Vivian Blackwood had gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. "The foundation has received over $2 million in donations because Elena asked me to support pediatric research after she learned that several of her students were dealing with childhood illnesses that affected their ability to focus on academics. She didn't request publicity or recognition for facilitating those contributions, she simply saw a need and found a way to address it." Elena felt tears building in her eyes, not from embarrassment but from overwhelming gratitude for David's unwavering support and his willingness to use his influence to defend her dignity. "I want to be clear about something," David said, his voice softening slightly. "Elena doesn't need my wealth or my status to validate her worth. She had already built her success, already earned her recognition, already proven her value to this community. My money didn't make her successful, her success inspired my generosity." He turned to look at Elena directly, his expression filled with admiration and love. "What my wife has accomplished through her tutoring business is more impressive than any software algorithm I've ever written, any investment return I've ever achieved, any business deal I've ever negotiated. She's changing lives one student at a time, and she's doing it with grace, humility, and a level of genuine care that this world needs more of." David faced the audience again, his final words carrying the weight of both personal conviction and financial influence. "I hope that tonight has been educational for everyone involved. Elena Rodriguez Chen is exactly the kind of person this foundation should honor, exactly the kind of professional this community should support, and exactly the kind of woman who deserves your respect regardless of what she's wearing or where she came from." The applause that followed was thunderous, though Elena suspected it was motivated by respect for David's position as much as genuine appreciation for her achievements. Patricia returned to the podium, her face glowing with satisfaction as she thanked David for his remarks and announced the evening's final donation tally. As the formal program concluded and guests began moving toward the reception area, Elena found herself surrounded by people who had ignored her earlier in the evening. The same individuals who had questioned her qualifications now wanted to discuss potential collaborations, speaking to her with the deference typically reserved for major donors and board members. Vivian Blackwood approached with an expression of forced warmth, her earlier criticism replaced by effusive praise for Elena's innovative approach to education. The blonde who had speculated about Elena's mother's profession now wanted to schedule tutoring sessions for her own children, suddenly convinced that Elena's unconventional background was exactly what her family needed. Elena accepted their belated recognition with polite professionalism, though she couldn't help but notice how quickly attitudes could change when circumstances were reframed. David remained beside her throughout the interactions, his presence serving as both support and silent reminder of the evening's lessons. As they finally prepared to leave, Patricia pulled Elena aside for a private conversation. "I owe you an apology," Patricia said quietly. "I should have anticipated how some people might react tonight, and I should have done more to prevent the discomfort you experienced." Elena shook her head. Tonight was exactly what it needed to be. Sometimes people need to see their own prejudices reflected back at them before they can recognize them. David's speech was extraordinary, Patricia continued, "but I want you to know that your recognition tonight was based entirely on your own merits. The foundation board voted unanimously to honor you before we had any idea about your connection to David." Elena smiled, feeling the truth of those words settle into place alongside the evening's other revelations. The drive home was quiet, both Elena and David processing the events of the evening in their own ways. Finally, Elena broke the silence. "You didn't have to do that," she said, though her tone conveyed gratitude rather than criticism. "Yes, I did," David replied firmly. "I've watched you doubt yourself for months, wondering if your success is legitimate, questioning whether you belong in certain spaces. Tonight proved that your instincts about social hierarchies were accurate, but it also proved that your worth doesn't depend on other people's recognition." Elena reached across to take his hand, marveling at how their relationship had evolved from David's initial inquiry about tutoring services for his nephew to this moment of absolute partnership and mutual support. "I love that you let people make their own assumptions before revealing the truth," Elena said. "It was the most honest social experiment I've ever witnessed." David laughed, squeezing her fingers gently. "I love that you didn't need me to rescue you tonight. You were handling their judgment with more grace than they deserved long before I said a word." Over the following weeks, Elena's business experienced unprecedented growth as word spread about her innovative methods and her connection to David's success, but more importantly, the nature of her client relationships changed. Parents approached her seeking not just academic improvement for their children, but the kind of character development and resilience that Elena embodied. The three women who had criticized her appearance at the gala each called to schedule consultations, their attitudes transformed by their new understanding of Elena's circumstances. Elena accepted their business with professional courtesy, using their requests as opportunities to demonstrate the same principles she taught her students about second chances and personal growth. Elena's story became a case study in local business schools about authentic leadership and the importance of substance over appearance. David's speech was quoted in articles about corporate social responsibility and the role of philanthropy in community development. But for Elena, the most meaningful outcome of that evening was the clarity it provided about her own values and priorities. She had built her success without compromising her integrity, earned recognition without sacrificing her authenticity, and found love with someone who celebrated rather than tried to change her fundamental character. 6 months later, Elena expanded her business to include a scholarship program for first-generation college students, funded partially through David's resources but managed entirely through her own expertise and vision. The program's mission statement reflected the lessons of that charity gala evening: excellence is not defined by where you start but by how you choose to grow. Standing in her new offices, watching tutors work with students from every conceivable background, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The whispers and judgments that had once felt so threatening now seemed irrelevant, overwhelmed by the evidence of lives changed and potential realized. David joined her at the window, slipping his arm around her waist as they watched the bustling activity of their shared vision coming to life. "Any regrets about that evening?" he asked, knowing the answer but wanting to hear her perspective. Elena smiled, thinking about the woman in the simple black dress who had walked into that ballroom months ago, uncertain of her place but certain of her worth. "Only that it took so long for me to realize that other people's opinions were never the measure I should have been using," she replied. "Everything else happened exactly as it should have." Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.